It's my favorite class to teach. I love teaching this class. And I love it that it's smallish. It usually is, 10 or so students. And I think it's great because it's very conducive to conversation and it works really, really well. So those of you in the back, if you get the courage up and want to move forward, you're welcome to do so. I still have to walk all the way back there. So we'll start out just kind of talking about we'll start with the syllabus and then we'll kind of get into the meat of what we're going to be covering in the class and everything. So you're here, so I don't have to tell you where it is. These are all of our course competencies. Feel free to review them as you like. These are all things that we are going to cover in this class. There's a lot of material in this class. It's a 4-credit class. So that means we're going to be covering a lot of stuff. We are in here for an hour and 50 minutes every Tuesday and Thursday. Even with all of that, I have to jam it in. So I highly advise you to attend. Again, it's part of your grade, and I'll go through the grade outline and everything here in a minute. But just for your own sake, so that you don't get behind, because we do, even though I do record it, so you can watch it kind of after the fact and review it over again. Being able to be here and ask questions is really, really invaluable, and the students who do best do that. They attend on a regular basis. I do understand that stuff comes up, and sometimes you can't be here. You can kind of think of the attendance like you're at a job that doesn't offer you any time off. So if you're sick or something, that's fine, but you're not going to get points for the class. Okay, so it's just kind of along those lines, because otherwise then I'm just kind of judging what's a valid excuse and what isn't a valid excuse. So just know that that's how that is going to be. You'll see that the attendance it's not like 75% of your grade or anything like that. All right, so expectations, attend class, read the postings, make sure you're signed up for announcements. You guys are all probably at least second year students, so you're well familiar with how Canvas works and signing up for those announcements. I don't have to go through that at all, but stay on schedule again. So just like I know I had a couple of you in payroll, so what I'm saying here is some of it's gonna be repetitive with regard to what I said over in payroll as well, but stay on schedule. This class, just like the payroll class, builds on itself. You're not gonna understand what's going on in chapter 6 if you haven't done chapters 1 through 5. So just stay, it is very progressive. If you need extra help, I have office hours. I'm not going to do study groups in this class. Every other class I do study groups, but I figure we're a small enough class that we don't have to do that to kind of get that cohesion going. But you of course are all welcome to get to know each other and work together and become a team. I certainly encourage that. But if you need extra help, you can always reach out to your classmates to see if anybody else you can ask in class. Certainly, I have office hours Tuesday and Thursday mornings and I will be in here because nobody's in here. They're both in person and virtual. So if you're not physically on campus and you want to come to the office hours, you can do that. From 8:45 in the morning until 11:15. So 2.5 hours Tuesday, Thursday mornings. If you need to meet outside of that, we can set up a time to do that. Most days I can probably stick around for about 15 to 20 minutes after class if needed. I do have some transportation responsibilities with my kids. Those of you who've had me before already know this. They play a lot of soccer. I live in Ames. They go to school in Ames. They play soccer in Des Moines. So when I live here, I go up and I get them in Ames, and then I come back down to Des Moines to take them to soccer. So I'm on a tight schedule, but I usually have maybe about 15 to 20 minutes after class. So if there's something you want to go over, or we can find another time as well. I'm pretty flexible with regard to the virtual meetings too, if you want to do that. Let's see here. So I've got all of that. Book. Okay, so the book is included in your fees. You should already be able to go online and access the ebook. The physical book is not included, but you can purchase a copy of the physical book, and I think it's less than $100. I don't know if any of you have done that yet or not. It's not like with payroll, like the physical copy is ridiculous, the price. This one, it's much more reasonable. So if you really want a physical copy, and I mean, for me, I like the physical copy, but you know.
It's out of stock.
It's out of stock?
Yeah.
You can probably order it. Well, I mean, you can't use financial aid. You could, but if you're not using financial aid, you can probably order it directly through McGraw-Hill as well. But this is what it looks like. Make sure you get the green one, the 2024 edition. Okay, I'm one of those lucky people that has to change books every single year with the subjects that I'm teaching, because of course the tax rates change, the brackets change, the deductions change, the credits change. Even though, for the most part, unless it's a year where there are huge changes to the tax code, usually the only changes are those numeric changes, the phase-out ranges, but the content is generally the same. It's just that those calculations will be a little bit different. But it is included in the cost. You've already paid for it, so you can access it now, and I'll show you on here how you do that. Okay, attendance. Like I said, we'll have attendance. When we go through the modules, I'll show you the different types of homework assignments that you will have. I do allow for late homework and tax return problems. These are both within Connect. There's a 25% flat reduction in points if they're late, okay? Late quizzes, there's also a quiz with every chapter. There's a 50% reduction in points. So that's kind of similar to payroll, what we were doing with the payroll. Learn Smart assignments. So these are the assignments, they use AI with it to assess what your understanding is. It forces you to go through the chapter and answer questions, and then if you don't answer it right, it's going to take you back to where you need to review more, so it can kind of read your mind as to how you're doing. We do have Learn Smart assignments. They are, right now I do not have them set up to accept late Learn Smart assignments. So, and that is by design, because I don't want you to do those first. I want you to, because you will have a much better understanding of the rest of the assignments if you can get those done first. Tax Act problems, these are assignments that are not in Connect. They are assignments that you're going to do separately with the software that you're going to download. Now, I don't know if you saw my messages. I think I sent messages out. Excuse me, I'm already getting a dry throat. About Tax Act, if you have a Mac, does anybody have a Mac? So I won't go through this if nobody has Mac. Good, you all have PCs? Okay, perfect. You will have no problem downloading. The software doesn't work with Mac, so I have to tell people a different route for getting to the software. But you'll download that software. It's also loaded onto the computers in this room, okay? So if you you can work on it here, like before class or after class or something like that, as long as they don't kick you out. I don't know what the rules are these days about that. So they may be accepted depending on circumstances, okay? So that one, again, I want you to work on. I want you to prioritize it, because that is super important. Let's see, attendance. So if we have to cancel class, I mean, obviously if it's a DMAC cancellation, you're going to get your notification, whatever that notification system is. If it's me, then I will put it in an announcement, okay? Because it is a small class, I might also email you, but for sure in an announcement. Is that how that'll come? So that's why I also want you to make sure that you've got you get those notifications of announcements. It doesn't happen it historically really hasn't happened very often. I really try not to. There is a chance, like if it's something like I'm sick and I don't want to get anybody else sick, or it's weather related, I may hold class virtually. So just kind of be aware of that, just so that we don't get behind, right? Let's see. Okay, so here's our grading criteria. We have a total of 1,200 points possible in this class. So you can see attendance is 40 of those. I should probably make that higher, but 40 kind of worked with the math this time around. But that's that 40 is spread out amongst the 30 class meetings that we have. First thing you're going to have to do, which is going to be due next Thursday, is this online training with Connect. Now, chances are you guys have all done this before. You've been here for a couple of years. You already have probably used Connect. I mean, I know you did in your principal's classes, so you know how this works. This will be a breeze. It's really not that much. So that's the first thing that's going to be due. Chapter homework. We have 12 chapters that we're going to cover. Homework is worth 10 points each. Learn Smart modules 5. Exams and let me skip over that for just a second. Chapter quizzes are 20 points each, and then these tax return problems, which are part of Connect as well, so where you're actually filling out a tax return, and you're not using software, so you're kind of doing it the old-fashioned way, where you used to actually have to do all the calculations yourself and know where that you were going to put everything. It wasn't just a matter of like the software where it asks you a question, you answer it, and it knows where it goes. No, this is so that you become familiar with the tax returns. Those tax return problems within Connect, and that's separate from Tax Act. Okay, Tax Act is going to be a separate assignment. Tax return problems are 10 points each. Tax Act assignments are also 20 points each, 20 points each. This is, and I'll go through how to use Tax Act. In fact, we'll probably go through that today rather than start on chapter 1, because we want to get you some information on that. We have a comprehensive assessment exam at the end of the semester, which you will have, because you're an in-person class, you'll have that in person one of the last days. That's just that you guys have all had these before. It's the whole department gets this exam. So it's an overview type of exam. At the end, you don't have a final exam other than this comprehensive assessment exam. I guess that's sort of a final, but it's not, it's like 30 questions, multiple choice, and we'll review for it as well. It's nothing to be really too concerned about. Comprehensive problems, though, these are more advanced tax return problems. So this is kind of your final exam. And you'll have from early November until December 10th to finish those comprehensive problems. But we won't have an actual final exam in class. But I will have time in class to help and go over stuff if you like. So the not the chapter quizzes, exams. Okay, so we do have these 4 exams, and they correspond with the 4 first units that we are covering. So the units are comprised, the first unit is comprised of chapter 1, 2, 3. Second is chapters 4, 5, 6. Third is chapter 7 and 8. And then the last one is chapter 9 and 10. Our last 2 chapters, we don't have an exam over. But these other ones, there are exams. They're take-home exams. You do them on your time. You can use your materials. They are timed, but you get to use resources with those exams. Let's see, what else? Questions about this? Okay. I don't want to scare you, but it is a lot of work. But you will learn so much. At the end of the semester, you'll be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe how much I learned. Everybody's going to want me to do their taxes now. Which, in the spring, if you want to do taxes, I'll give you an opportunity to do that. And I'll tell you about that a little bit later in the semester. talked about late assignments, extra credit. Yeah, I don't do a whole lot of extra credit in this class, but that doesn't mean it can't happen. Okay, AI. So we don't really do a whole lot where AI would be an issue. That's like, ChatGPT or Grammarly or things like that. We do have one written assignment. We're asking you to do some research and write, it's like, I can't remember if it's 2 or 3 pages or something like that. It's not like a huge research project or anything like that. But that's really the only written assignment that we have. My philosophy is you can do research with it, with AI, if you want. It's actually a great research tool. It's really it's no different in theory than Googling stuff, than using a search engine. And I know a lot of search engines these days use AI as well. But I have in the past had some students where it was kind of questionable as to whether or not that was actually their work product. So we now have a policy for that. And so this is the general school policy. Where is it? Yeah. This is the general school policy. This is my policy. And if I suspect that a submission has been created using an AI tool, I'll run it through an AI detector software. There's AI detector software out there. If the software indicates that it is more likely than not, over 50% of the submission is AI generated, then that will proceed. We'll have a discussion about the source of that. I don't anticipate that with any of you. You're all second-year students. But like I said, I have had students in the past, and I'm like, that's just a little too good. That's better than your discussion, your other stuff has been. So, but that's where that is, okay? So again, I don't mind you using it for research. I've used it for tax research before. It's not always right. Sometimes it gets it wrong, and you have to be very specific with it about what question you're asking. So it's one of those things that it's a really good tool if you are a specialist in the area and you can review the material that it's spitting out. It saves you a lot of time. It really increases efficiency. However, if you're not a specialist in the area, whatever that area is, you got to take it with a grain of salt because you don't have the expertise to really review it. But anyway, so that's the AI. All this stuff is the DMAC stuff. Oh, look at all those assignments you guys have to do. Are you excited? Some of these aren't. They say assignment, but they're actually the readings. But all the ones with points are assignments. Okay, now that I've scared you, let's look at the modules. All right, so here's our schedule at a glance. All right, so this is, you can, download this or print it out or whatever you want to do with it. This is just kind of a way, makes it easier for me to plan out the class. If I put this together and then I realize, hey, students might like this too. Just to show you day by day what we're going to be doing. So we've got 3 days here to cover the information in chapter 1. That includes today if we get to any of it. So it may just be 2 days. But your chapter 1, so we should be finished with chapter 1 by next Thursday. Your chapter 1 homework is going to be due the following Thursday. So we should be well done with the lectures before the homework is actually due, okay? So what I've got, I'm sorry, no? Okay, so this is what we're doing in class. And then these are the assignments. And you can see I've got some assignments available and assignments due. If you go into your Canvas right now, you'll notice that you only have access to the first module, right? The rest of the modules will open up as we proceed. And the schedule for them opening up is listed here. So for example, 4, 5, and 6 will open up on September 11th. Now we're not gonna start talking about 4, 5, and 6 until like the 17th, but it will be available to you to open up and take a look at, okay? That's why I don't want you to get too far ahead of yourself with this stuff. I want you to stay on task and focus on what we're covering at that time so that you don't get too far behind. My experience was when I allowed students to just see everything and do everything all at once, it created some chaos. And I had a lot of students asking questions as well about stuff that the rest of the class hadn't even looked at yet, and so it was just, for classroom management purposes, it's a lot easier to do it this way. What else? Last day to drop, and this is for all of your full term classes, is Wednesday the 4th. Okay, I don't think you guys are gonna drop. You're gonna have a good time in here. These are our chapters that we're going to cover. First one is our introduction to taxation. So just kind of get an overview, take a look at the Form 1040, which is our tax form. You're gonna hear a lot of acronyms and a lot of numbers in this class. I should have show of hands, who has prepared their own or somebody else's tax return? Okay, so we've got a few of you that are familiar. You know, when I say 1040, you know what that is. And some of you who maybe aren't yet familiar with it. You're gonna get very familiar with a lot of tax forms in here, and we have a lot to go through. The first one, we're just gonna look at that Form 1040 and go over what's called the income tax formula, which essentially is a summary of everything on both pages of the Form 1040. And everything is categorized by income first, and then certain types of deductions, and then certain credits, and then calculation of the tax liability, and then get down to any tax refund or amount due. So that's essentially what the tax formula is. And we're gonna go through all of that for the first week and a bit. Chapter 2, we're gonna get a little bit more in depth. So we're gonna expand upon that tax formula and add a few elements to it, more specific elements. We're still kind of looking at it from a general, just a bigger picture here. And we're gonna get deeper into the 1040, into each of the lines on the 1040 as well. So that's chapter 2. Chapter 3, we start getting more specific. Now we're gonna talk about the first category on the 1040, income. What is included in income, what isn't included in income, how we define a lot of those items of income as well. So that's chapter 3. Chapter 4, adjustments for adjusted gross income. So adjusted gross income, we're gonna talk a lot about what that concept is. That's a very important concept in tax. We'll define what that is. I'm not gonna mix it up quite yet, but adjustments are a type of deduction. So remember I said first we had income, then we had certain types of deductions, other types of deductions. These are the first category of deductions. Chapter 5 is kind of the next category of deductions, and we're going to get into the weeds about what those specifically are, who qualifies for them, who doesn't qualify for them, how they're defined, what phase out ranges maybe they have, and that sort of thing, what their limitations are. Chapter 6, now you'll see each of these so far we've got like 2 class periods devoted to each chapter. Chapter 6, we have 4 class periods devoted to this chapter because it's a big chapter. It covers not only self-employed business income, so a specific type of income. I mean, before it was, income, gross income, up there in chapter 3. Now it's a specific type of income for those individuals who are not employees, but they're self-employed. And we talked about, I've had, I think all of you in payroll, or have you in payroll now, and we talk a lot about self-employed taxes there. We get more in depth in this class about self-employed tax, income and taxes. But as part of chapter 6, we not only talk about that income and what types of expenses can offset that income, we talk about one of the biggest types of expenses, depreciation. And you guys in your financial accounting classes have studied depreciation. You know that you've got all these different types of depreciation that you can use, straight line depreciation, some of the year's digits depreciation, accelerated depreciation, and you got all sorts of, you got salvage value. Depreciation for tax purposes is completely different. Concept's still the same. You are expensing an asset over time, but the rules are a lot different. In financial accounting, you have a lot more leeway with depreciation, which depreciation methods you use. In tax accounting, you do not. And so it's it's a big area. I've always said, I think that should be a separate chapter all on its own, but it's not. They put it in with the self-employed business income. So I decided we're gonna cover, instead of try to cover that in 1 week, we're gonna cover it in 2. So you'll see there's 4 periods for the chapter 6. Chapter 7 is another, it's not a physically big chapter, but it's a conceptually big chapter because it's very different from what a lot of students have had personal experience with. Most students have had personal experience with wages, what's on their W-2. They've paid Social Security taxes, they've paid income taxes. Maybe they have not, though, had experience with capital gains taxes. This is where you sell an investment for a gain and the taxes that are associated with that. And we're going to talk about the different types of assets and how they are treated for tax purposes. So this is another, chapters 6 and 7 are the heaviest lift in this class, okay? So just kind of to be aware of that. But we do only have two days to cover it. So that one is kind of, I know a lot of students are like, we need more time for this. Yeah, we don't have time. You're gonna have to make do. Chapter 8, we talk about rental property. So how rental property, how the income is calculated, what expenses are allowed, and how it is taxed, as well as royalties, and we'll define what royalties are, and income from flow-through entities. So again, this is an area where a lot of students really aren't maybe familiar with it. What exactly a flow-through entity is, we'll cover all of that when we get to it. Chapter 9 is devoted just to tax credits, different types like the earned income credit, the child tax credit, the credit for dependent care expenses, the American Opportunity Credit, the Lifetime Learning Credit. Those are the ones that usually students are, keyed into because that's what's most familiar to them. Chapter 10, payroll taxes. So if you have taken payroll or are currently taking payroll, this chapter is going to be a breeze. But it's essentially condensing into 2 class periods what we learned, for the most part, in payroll class, without the accounting integration part. It's just focusing on the taxes. Okay, so then we skip over to chapter 14. Why do we skip? Well, because we don't have enough time to cover chapters 11, 12, and 13, and they are probably the lesser used income tax facets. So we go into partnership taxation. This is an overview of partnership taxation. Partnerships are a type of business entity. They have special taxation rules. It's one of those flow-through entities that I mentioned up there. So we're going to talk about partnership taxation and some of those rules. This is very much an overview of partnership taxation. Partnership taxation, there are people that specialize only in that area, and it can be quite complex. But we take a look at that, and then our last chapter is corporate taxation. So another type of business entity, the corporate entity, and how they are taxed and the rules around that. Let's see, we don't have class on Thanksgiving. And by Thanksgiving, you are pretty much, like your last assignments are due for chapter 15 on the 5th. And then on the 10th are your comprehensive problems. So you are done with the bulk before Thanksgiving. There's no homework then due that week. So you've got Thanksgiving free, unless you're making up for stuff. Okay? Any questions about the schedule? No? Okay. All right. How do I So I'm gonna bring this up.